industries, which I can go into in a little bit. But yeah, that's about my life story.
It's a short one, Amanda.
I know, I was going to give more, actually.
I think it's like maybe your business life story, but I don't think that's your life story. I'm not going to accept that as your life story.
I didn't know how much I wanted to go into my life story at the beginning point, but I could start with, okay, I went to Cal Poly. And
which Cal Poly?
The real one. Let's be honest. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yeah, I went to Cal Poly, and I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, so love it here.
My name is Robert Murphy. I'm a tax senior manager here at Frank Rimerman. I started with the firm in 2008 as an intern. Did the internship for a summer. I'm sure internships are already on your radar. If they're not, it's in my opinion, the best two-way interview you can get. You really get to check out a firm, meet some people, actually figure out if you want to start a career with them. I'm really glad I did the internship with Frank Rimerman. Then went back to school for the year, finished up, came back to Frank Rimerman, graduating in 2009. Does anybody know what the economy looked like in 2009? Good or bad? Show thumbs up, thumbs down. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, very thumbs down. So, you know, I'm pumped to be part of Frank Rimerman because a lot of firms actually rescinded offers from that internship year to when we started. Frank Rimerman didn't. What they did is they actually delayed offers because the economy was really bad. And one of our larger A&A clients was going through some financial trouble, and they couldn't bring us on to do the work that typically at that time of year we do. So they deferred from September start to a January start. So I'm one of the only full classes that was a January start here at Frank. Actually, the only one, right, Erin? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep. Started the firm 2010. Haven't looked back. Really enjoyed my time here. Also went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Go Mustangs. Respect University of Riverside. That's fine. I grew up in Burbank, so I'm actually not too far away from Riverside down south. Cal Poly was a blast. Enjoyed the heck out of that, and I've really enjoyed my time here at Frank Rimerman. During the internship, we have a rotational internship. We also have a rotational associate program, so you get to try on a bunch of different departments and really try that shoe on before you make a commitment. 100%, if you'd asked me out of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, Robert, what do you want to do? I'd say I'm going into audit. 100%, I do not regret my choice to go tax. So school's awesome. You learn a ton. You learn how to learn, which is really important. But when you get out in the real world, you start actually touching and doing what it is you're studying, and that can make all the difference in the world, and certainly did for me. What am I talking about? I'm just rambling. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Full introduction. And don't let the Cal Poly trifecta fool you. We do recruit from other schools, I promise you. I promise you. We just bring the best of the best tonight. But we know that you all have been doing a lot of virtual learning, a lot of presentations, things like that. We wanted to give you a break from the slide deck and really make tonight a little bit more conversational. And Robert mentioned that we do have rotational programs. So that is one of our main kind of programs in the firm, is at the entry level, and within our internship, we offer the rotations. So kind of try before you buy across our tax, audit, and advisory service lines. Really great opportunity to get that exposure before making your decision moving forward. But we also know that so many of you are really kind of, tax or audit. What does that look like? What does that actually mean outside of the classroom? And that's what we wanted to focus on tonight. So that's why we have the two here kind of representing both sides, and hope that they'll kind of share some insight that gives you better clarity on what your future career path could look like. So for the two of you just kind of starting out, how did you end up in your departments? Why did you choose tax and audit respectively? And what did you find within that department that maybe you didn't find in the others? I don't know, Robert, if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, sure. It was a really hard decision. I'll be incredibly honest. It's not easy to choose, because you've chosen not yet, but you will choose a career in accounting if you end up in that, going down that road. So that's a big choice in and of itself. What do you want to do with your life? And then you get into accounting and figure out, hey, there's all these different branches. And you only hear about audit and tax. I'm sure we'll talk about a few of the others tonight too. But you only hear about audit and tax mainly because those are the two that are out there that are the most prevalent. And really, when somebody thinks about what a CPA does, those are the two that come to mind. You either do my taxes or you're the one helping me get my financials prepared. So rotated through both really considering both very, very honestly, very openly. I didn't even really like tax coming out of school. So when I had to do a tax rotation, I was kind of like, whatever, let me just choose audit and get this over with. Really fell in love with tax for a few reasons. And some of the reasons that I didn't enjoy audit actually aren't Frank Rimerman audit, because Frank Rimerman audit is a little bit different. But tax, I really like the fact that I got to go to the same desk every day. I'm a little bit of a creature of habit. I think I'd be really easy for a hitman to kill, to be honest with you. It's like 7:30 down the hill every day to the office, no problem. So I really liked that standard commute. I really liked going to my office with my little spot and the people around me. And at that time it was a cube, but hanging out with my team in the bullpen was really fun for me. When you get into the work, tax was a lot more rewarding to me because of the level of interaction you got and what you were helping a client do. So not exactly fair shake for audit, because Frank Rimerman audit does a lot of other services that I didn't fully see, but I'm consulting with clients to help them mitigate tax liabilities. And at the same time, I'm also helping them move their generational wealth from one generation to another. This gets a lot of a bad rap in the news, right? Like, hey, they're just transferring money down from generation to generation and those kids never worked for it. I work with a lot of closely held businesses that on paper are worth small fortunes, some of them large fortunes. But if you attempted to liquidate those businesses, to take cash out of them, it actually means selling the family business, selling family real estate, selling family properties, something that might have been in the family for 2, 3, 4 generations. So it's a lot of money on paper, but at the end of the day, there's not a lot of cash liquid wealth there to transfer. So that's something that early on I got pretty hooked on. Like, hey, we can help people keep their family business without breaking it up. Now, no, this isn't mom and pop's liquor store on the corner or the convenience store down the road from that. These are bigger businesses with much larger balance sheets. Doesn't so much matter. You're still doing the same thing. You're still helping them transfer what it is that their grandparents or their great grandparents helped build and get going. We also do a lot of the other stuff. Hey, I have a massive stock portfolio. What's the best way to get that to my kids? And we help with that too. That's something we enjoy doing also. And just the consulting nature of helping clients mitigate tax, talking to them about the next transaction and how we're going to plan for it from a tax perspective, how much, and what's the one question everybody has when they sell their business? It's not how much tax am I going to pay, actually. It's how much cash do I have and how many Ferraris can I buy, right? Like, nobody actually cares what their tax liability is. Everybody just cares what's the cash I'm going to take home. I mean, you could argue that it's the same question and answer, but that was always fascinating to me, is how can we help you make that dollar value bigger when you sell your business or your piece of real estate or go through this next transaction. Also the people, honestly, the people in audit and tax made it the most difficult decision, because you get to know the people as you're rotating through. And I dare you to ask an accounting firm what sets them apart, and not hear our people are the best people, because it's literally what you're going to hear at every single accounting firm. And I actually do believe it, by the way. I do believe that every accounting firm has the best people for that group of people, and you are with people that you really enjoy working with and you enjoy being in the trenches with, because public accounting is high hours. So you're going to have to enjoy the people you're with. So if you don't think you're at a place with the best people, you're naturally going to move on. So the people made it nearly impossible, because on the A&A side, people like Mike Farno and Tim Perotti, you don't want to let those people down and tell them you went to the dark side and went tax. But the people on the tax side really had me pretty much convinced. So long answer to a short question. It's not an easy decision. Kick it over to you, Amanda.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's funny because our journeys are quite similar, but then different at the same time. So I actually was also an intern, and I went through all the different departments that we had. I came in predisposed to thinking I was going to do tax, because I did a tax internship through college, and that was something that I was pretty sure with. But I thought, oh, I'm just going to give audit another chance. Maybe like something will click with my next experience. And so I went through another audit rotation right after I joined, and I went through venture capital fund audits, which is something that you don't really hear about when you're in college. And I certainly wasn't exposed to it on my family room or like my dinner room tables with my family. So yeah, that was a really different experience. And to me, that really opened my eye to what the possibilities are, because the venture capital fund space is super unique to the Bay Area, and especially with Frank Rimerman. Our audit group as well is really growing in this space, and we have a massive amount of clients that do venture investing. And so for me, my choice to declare audit was really based upon the idea of what interests me, which was the businesses and how companies operate. So to me, like, I'm such a huge advocate of learning and trying to find out as much as I can about businesses and industries and what there is out there. And so with our audit department, we have a really quick turnaround in our audit engagements. It's about 2 to 3 weeks. And so since it's so short, you're able to actually see a bunch of different clients in a bunch of different industries. And so that really attracted me to declare audit as opposed to tax, and haven't looked back. Loved every minute of it. But as Robert said, yeah, I'd say the people are honestly great that made the decision really hard, because it's just people that you want to work with, honestly.
And even though once you're on the other side, you don't care anymore. You're not bummed that somebody went audit if you really like them in tax. You're bummed you don't get to keep working with them. But at the end of the day, our goal is really with the rotational program. It's expensive. It's not a cheap thing to do, and it's expensive on time mostly. To bring a new class of people through every year, teach them tax, teach them ANA, teach them ACFO, run them through these departments, and then let them choose. It's a maddening endeavor. But the reason we do it is because we want everybody to jump into something that they're really passionate about, so that in the long run, they're here longer, they're enjoying themselves more. Worked out well for Amanda and I.
Totally. And Amanda, you started kind of going into it a little bit, and another big reason for you was the clients. And obviously that's something of major interest for students. So can you touch a little bit more on, what does your client base look like? What industries do they cover? How many are you typically handling at a time?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, I honestly started with a really broad experience in audit. I started doing a bunch of different industries. I did not-for-profits, foundations, 401k audits, our normal corporate engagements, and then also the venture capital space. And it's probably within the last 4 years or so, I started to really focus on this venture capital fund group and auditing those type of audits, because those were the things that really interest me the most. I really wanted to hear from our GPs, hear about their investing strategy. What was the next up and coming industry that's coming through the Bay Area? And honestly, yeah, it's really amazing to see different portfolio companies that not are just in the Bay Area, but also just within our national or borders. Actually, it's not even just national, to be honest, it's international, because we have a bunch of clients that have investing in international areas. So those are my general bread and butter, I'd say. And then outside of that group of time, I work a lot with, so I work with a lot of really cool clients. It's really strange about this industry, but I do a lot of golf courses and country clubs. So it's really unique. That's definitely totally different world. Never would have thought that I'd be auditing golf courses, honestly.
Do you handle the one?
No, that's someone else. But I do the other ones like towards the South Bay. Yeah.
What? Okay, we're gonna fix that.
Fun stuff though, for sure. It's really it's really interesting. Honestly, it's super different.
One of the only times you can depreciate land is a golf course.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun fact.
And Robert, you say Up My Way. Tell us a little bit more about what that means for you and how it relates to your clients. Not prepared at all.
Not prepared at all for that question. So seriously though, I live up out of I work out of our Napa office. So we're based in St. Helena. I live in a small town up here called Angwin. And I've been here for 7 years now out of this office, maybe 8 years now out of this office, because I did 2 years in Palo Alto. So I work with really a large breadth of clients, although I'd say that it's starting to narrow. So as you sort of continue growing and climbing up the ladder that, public accounting is, you start specializing as you keep growing, right? So first, second, third, fourth, fifth year, you might be touching just a ton of stuff. So I used to have a pet food company. I've done some, I had a tax client that built electric motors, lost like $53 million doing it, never really recovered, was not a great business. Um, so I've done a lot of stuff. I've done venture-backed startup. I did some VCs. I touched a few of those. Unlike Amanda, it was not my bailiwick, and I ran as quickly as I could from it. But understand its importance, and really, it's a fascinating industry. So I have one client who I don't do the VC fund, but I do his returns, and he is a venture capitalist, and he has 4 funds now. So I'm still touching it just kind of on the back end, where I feel a lot more comfortable. And then I do quite a few winery clients. The other area I work a lot in is real estate. So I have a few families that are pretty well developed into real estate in the North Bay and Peninsula. I work with about 53 client groups, but that doesn't mean I do 53 tax returns. I don't have that number. A client engagement for me could be one client. So I have 2 clients. They both work at Google. They're married, pretty straightforward returns, some pretty monstrous W-2s, and off we go. I have another client, group. Every year they had more entities. It's got to be 25 to 30 returns now, because every time they buy a property, they start a new entity. Every time they do a 1031 exchange, they go from 1 to 2. So they're just continuously building this entity structure out. And then on top of all of the entity returns, there's all the individual returns. There's 7 of those. And that's, dad, generation 1, G1, all the way to, we're only a G2 right now as far as tax returns go. G3 hasn't quite gotten up to tax return ready yet, but they're all working in the family business in one facet or another. And it's interesting because you got to juggle a lot on something like that. Like, I need to know, and what's really maddening about this client group is they buy properties, and let's say the property is 123 Main Street. They name the LLC 123 Main Street, and then they call the property Breakers for some reason instead of 123 Main Street. So you'll be on a call with all of them because they'll just call you, hey, we need to talk about Breakers. Remind me what the heck 123 Main Street. Okay, can we maybe call it 123? No, we call it Breakers. Can we change the name of the LLC? Nope, we're not doing that. It's perfect how it is. Okay, let's just call it 5 things. That's fun too. And then halfway through the client call, something will come up with one of their personal matters, and I need to know, hey, yeah, Jen's house had fire damage last year, and we're trying to figure out what we're doing about that and how we're going to deal with the insurance claim. So it's just a lot of moving pieces, and even though the industries I work in are narrowing, the number of things I'm touching is just growing every day because no 2 transactions are the same. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But fun.
Keeps it interesting though. Keeps you on your
absolutely. No,
toes.
it's super interesting. Yeah, no complaints whatsoever. I mean, I am complaining that they can't just call something by the entity name. I've never understood that. But aside from that, they're so dynamic, and they're always changing the way they think about things. And they came to us. This one group I really enjoy working with, and you've never heard so many thank yous out of a client's mouth ever. It's just amazing how appreciative they are of the work we do for them, which feels good at the end of the day. And they had some, unfortunately, not the best advice with their prior CPA firm. And when they came to us, it was just a ton of cleanup. And every time I'd talk to the main guy, his name's Russ, I say, Russ, this is how you do it. And he goes, we've never done it that way. That's fine. That's how we're doing it going forward because of this, and this. And he's like, well, I trust your advice. I really hate that answer, but I guess that's what we're doing from now on. So it's always fun. We're cleaning things up and helping them get a few things on track, and along the way having a really good time.
Always good, always important. And so much of that, like you said, is due to the people around you and kind of the work environment that you can develop that way. So can you both kind of touch on what that team looks like within client engagements? How many, as an incoming associate, how many people can you expect to work with? What does that really look like? Robert, if you want to start with tax.
I'm back in the office now. And sidebar, before I dive into that, we're like a really small group. So if anybody does have questions about something Amanda or I, or Aaron covers, because Aaron's an insane wealth of knowledge too, feel free to jump in or type it out or do whatever, because this is really for you all. So if you have a question, you don't ask it, nobody benefits. So the teams coming in as a level 1, you're going to run through the tax department. We have 5 different tax pods. Pod is just another word for group. So 5 tax groups. They cross offices. They also cross borders as far as states go. So in my group, we have somebody in Oregon, we have people in LA, we have people that work out of Palo Alto, St. Helena, and San Francisco offices, and we have people who live kind of everywhere in between. So even though it's a group, it's not based on so much region, although originally they kind of were. They're just sort of growing and morphing into something bigger. Our pod has probably 30 to 35 people in it at any given time throughout the year. And from a level one, you're going to work with a lot of them, except for those people who are at the same level as you. And you might not work with the class that's just above you because they're doing a lot of the same stuff as you. But you're going to work with all 35 of them at one point or another in one way or another. The teams are typically, for an engagement, we've got the partner, a manager, a senior, and a staff member. And all four of those are going to have their fingers in the pie throughout the engagement. The partner hopefully stays out of the engagement as much as possible, and the work gets done at the staff and senior level, and then the manager basically sits back and takes all the credit for the good work that everybody else does. I'm very good at that. It tries to deal with, managing client relationships, making sure the technical concepts are caught, some of the estate planning, some of the structuring, things of that nature tend to be at the manager level. Basically everything's a team, even if it's a team of two. There's not much, if anything, we ever do or I ever do that I do it myself and out the door it goes. We are, as Aaron said, our name means a lot to us, and every work product we kick out the door means a lot to us. So we always want to have at least 2 sets of eyes on something before it goes out, just because you don't want to be the person that fat fingers and adds an extra 0 in the Excel sheet and tells a client they owe 1 million instead of 100,000. So that can change the tone of a call very quickly. I think I'm going to toss this to you now, Amanda. Unless
Okay, sorry.
No.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's all good. So we're really similar. I'd say audit is a very team sport. Our engagements are very similarly run. There's a partner, a senior manager, a senior, and associate. And so actually one of the reasons what drew me to Frank Rimerman was this type of group structure, because when I applied to colleges, for example, like I really wanted to go to a place where the groups were smaller and the learning was more hands-on, which was Cal Poly. And so to me that made choosing Frank Rimerman, for example, a really important decision. So within our audit groups, as I mentioned, there's about a 2 to 3 week timeline. And so you'll work with the same team for those 2 to 3 weeks, but then when you roll on to another engagement, it's actually a new team. So you will get a diversity of people you're working with, but our entire department isn't so large that you're going to work with a brand new person for the entire year. There'll obviously be overlap between who you're working with. So for example, I'm out of the San Jose office and we have about like 50 to 60 people. And I'd say it's a really good size where everybody really knows each other. And you definitely work with at least one of the people in those 50 to 60 numbers at least once in a year. And I'd say, yeah, so the same thing as Robert mentioned applies, which is our teams are super supportive, and I'd say that our learning and development is more hands-on. I'd probably say it's maybe the same across our firm, right, Robert? I'm not sure how the tax department does the training, but for audit at least, a lot of hands-on. You'll learn from your senior or manager, and we do have structured trainings annually, but I'd say the big bulk of it is done hands-on with your team that you work with.
Definitely not a shortage of trainings across the firm by any means. Not at all. Not at all. And I know that's always a big question of, what am I expected to know coming in? How am I going to learn it? How am I going to ask questions? But I think you'll both probably touch on it a little bit, that there's quite an open door policy across the firm. And we really do look at your first few years as that learning opportunity. And as Robert mentioned, we're doing the rotational program for your benefit. And, that's really up to you to make the most of it and take in all that you can, absorbing everything and really utilizing that time to ask your questions and build your foundation. And kind of going off that, maybe can you talk a little bit more about what that training and really kind of that mentoring opportunity looks like in your department? How is everyone being moved along and provided those tools to succeed within your groups? I don't know, Amanda, I know you have a pretty heavy hand in your kind of people department within audit. Can you kind of touch on your work there?
Yeah, no, definitely. So as Erin mentioned, we have an open door policy. Honestly, at all levels, people are so willing to help you if you have a question. And I'd say everyone's actually just like to the point almost that they're annoying because they keep asking, do you have any questions? Like, how can we help you? But it's so great because honestly, it provides that communication that allows you to keep asking a question because, you know, I'm sure you're always going to have questions. And I've always been told that there's no dumb question unless you ask the question twice. So that definitely applies, I feel like, throughout your time at Frank Rimerman, because no one's really, you know, going to judge you if you don't know something because you're not expected to know anything. So yeah, I'd say for the most part though, training never stops though. So depending on what group you will work in, you'll get specific training in the type of industry that you're auditing. But for the most part, there's such a strong support system within, I'd say, our entire department, because you have your counselor that you can always ask questions to, either personal or professional. And then in your engagements, honestly, like you can ask anyone in your engagement, but I can say, like, when I was in the office, I'd always used to see people ask questions even if they're not in the engagement because everyone's so willing to help. So yeah, it's definitely just a really huge open door policy and everyone's willing to train and help out.
Yeah, ditto. I'm working on 1031 training in 2 weeks, so I'll be the instructor for that. Everybody will learn tons, I'm sure. Uh, but one of the best ways to learn is to pick something up and touch it and get excited about it and then say, hey, I'd like to learn more about this. I remember my mom had a tax question when I first started as like a level one, you know, immediately you're a tax accountant. I swear people come out of the woodwork asking you tax questions. You think when you're at school, everybody tells you tax accounting is super boring and nobody's ever going to talk to you again. The second you become a CPA and a tax accountant, you're one of the most popular people at parties because people just want to sit there and bounce tax ideas off you. And you think I'm lying? I'm not. I've had so many friends call me and just say, hey, can I ask you a few tax questions? No, absolutely not. I don't want to do, I've been doing this for 10 hours today. I don't want to do this for longer. One of my best friends in the world, I do his tax returns for him in this small company he started. At one point, we were filing in 3 states, sorry. For him, he's got K1s coming out of everywhere. And I'm just like, dude, this was supposed to be this really simple thing. And you've got kind of a complicated world going here. And I'm really sorry I'm friends with you right now. Back up. Okay, training. The reason I was saying this is because you don't really know much when you come out of school, other than how to learn. You've got a lot of theory, but not a lot of the hard concepts, and haven't actually maybe even prepared a big tax return or something like that. So I remember my mom asked me this question. And one of the partners who I was working directly with at the time, which was a little bit intimidating, but a lot of fun also, Tony Mancini felt intimidating at the time, but now he's like a really good friend of mine. I said, hey, you know, Tony, I had this question from my mom. I don't know who to ask. He goes, why don't you ask me? I said, it's not worth your time to ask this question. He goes, look, if you're learning something, you're going to apply it forward onto one of my clients eventually. If I can teach you anything about tax, you're going to use it later down the road on one of my clients to make us look good. I'd love to teach you anything you want to know. And if it's a question coming from your family, you're probably more interested in it than something else I could hand you today. So what's the question? Let's learn about it. Let's dig into it. And, you know, simple little thing. He was like, yeah, here's the answer. Go to this code section. You got it. But it was a really interesting sort of policy of, hey, just ask the question. And so I get questions all the time, just not on my engagement, not a client I've ever learned from, maybe not even in my tax pod, but somebody calls me and says, hey, I know you helped work on this template. Can you walk me through it? Or, hey, I heard in our, you know, weekly meeting that you were doing something like this. My situation is kind of similar. Can I bounce an idea off you? I do the same to everybody all the time too. Like Shelly Chen, she's the best at real estate. I'm going to her for all of my really tricky real estate questions. Scott Daly, I have a 754 question. That man knows 754 like nobody's business. Kevin McCullough, anything. He knows everything and it's painful. International weird situation, go to Mike Janaki. That guy will tell you exactly where to go looking. Anyamoto, charitable giving, family wealth transfers, estate planning, and anything else under the sun, she's got you handled. So, you know, these are people who are extremely busy, but if you put 15 minutes on their calendar and say, hey, I have a question, they're pumped to share their knowledge with you because they know down the line when they have some client who invests in a winery and has a question about it, I'm here and I'm ready. Or when they get into I do a lot of partnerships, some advanced partnership transaction. Maybe I've seen it. Maybe I'm able to help them out. Maybe I'm able to send them some work papers that we use, something like that. So we do, and then we also have CPE outside of the firm. So a bunch of us got really excited. There's a 1031 training in 2 weeks coming up, and there's 7 of us, virtually going to it. So we're pretty excited. We even have 45 minutes after the training on the calendar to sit around and act like accounting nerds and talk about it. We're pumped about it. So that's how training and learning has kind of worked for me. And for the firm, it's great. I mean, you can get all your CPE internally, no questions asked, 80 hours, 2 years, no problem.
I feel like so much has to do with our kind of strong tenure in that regard. So many people want you to ask the question, they want to teach you because they've been in your shoes. Robert and Amanda kind of talked about their history with the firm, but they're definitely not kind of isolated in that tenure at all. It's really strong across the firm. 27 of our 34 partners either started in your shoes and kind of grew up that way or grew into the partnership one way or another with the firm. So they get it. They really see it as kind of that focus on internal development. They see it for the greater good. They want to teach you and they want you to kind of be excited about everything to be able to move forward. So really special culture across the firm to have that mindset and the capability to focus on it. And obviously looks a little bit different now, kind of being virtually and things like that. It definitely has not stopped the questions, has not stopped the learning. I think in some ways it's really enhanced things in some capacities. So can you two talk about what that looks like for you? How has your kind of role and kind of day-to-day changed a little bit? Amanda, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, no, for sure. So since we all moved to shelter in place, we moved in quite early, honestly, and it's been such a seamless process on the audit side because we're quite mobile already. And so our teams had to adjust to auditing clients remotely, which was a little bit challenging because I'd say that a lot of our clients weren't prepared to go into shelter in place themselves. So there were probably more delays on the client side, but I'd say internally we were like full cylinders ahead. Everyone was working really well because our IT infrastructure was already really strong. We use Microsoft Teams, for example, and people were able to connect just as easily as if they were in the audit room. But no, I agree with what Erin was saying, honestly, in that it's interesting to see some of the things that have changed because of our remote work environment. And I'd say that there has been some positive benefits that we've seen come across. So communication has definitely gone up. For example, my department has had weekly meetings with every single person in the department. So this is like over 100 people. We all sit in a Zoom and we hear the updates that's going on in our department every week, which is really nice because you see the partners talking, the managers and the associates get to hear the same information. And then across the firm as well, our managing partner has a weekly call as well. So that's really nice to see that consistency and update like pretty quickly, immediately on a weekly basis. And then I'd say in terms of our communications, I said it's gone up since we've been in shelter in place. I'd say that for the seniors, they've mentioned to me, and I agree, as I've noticed myself, that it's been a lot easier to honestly train actually in a remote environment because you get to share a screen so you're a little bit more comfortable and not sitting directly next to the person. And sharing the screen is super easy because you can show them exactly how you would do something, or you could see exactly like maybe something that they might have not done correctly. And it's a lot more clear on a screen that both of you are looking at than as opposed to when you're sitting next to each other and like squinting at a really small screen.
Trying to watch someone type too. They just type their password wrong all day. Yeah. No, I don't miss that at all. Robert, before we get to you, I know, Amanda, one of the questions I get a lot on campus is, well, aren't auditors out at clients all the time? Like, how are they even doing their jobs right now? And can you talk a little bit about what that kind of travel misconception looks like?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'd say that's actually a pretty huge misconception within our audit group is that we travel a lot. So we do travel before the pandemic, obviously, to our clients. Most of our clients are in the Bay Area, so we try to limit the travel times to hopefully not too far. Like we cut the Bay Area in half, and if you're above Palo Alto, like most of your clients will be above Palo Alto, and if you're below Palo Alto, most of your clients will be below Palo Alto. But with that said, like there are opportunities to travel out of state or out of the area for inventory counts. And we do meet with clients if there are specific reasons for that as well. So I have like a ton of stories where I've been to Nashville or Reno and Las Vegas to do inventory counts. And, you know, that sounded really cool, but then I started going on them and then I was like, no, this isn't as cool traveling for work because all you do is work, and not as fun, honestly. I'm telling you now, it's not as great as it sounds. Although I do have to admit, we went to Vegas and it was fun because you do the inventory count and then you can go out later, but then it's just exhausting. Like you can't keep doing that. But no, yeah, as Erin was mentioning, I'd say the thing that we've noticed the most before the pandemic was that a lot of our clients are startups. And so, as you may know, the real estate in the Bay Area is quite high. And so a lot of companies had a smaller footprint. And so there were times for some of our clients where we'd work mostly in the office for half the time, and then we'd go out to them for half the time. So you wouldn't necessarily have to be in the client's space for the entire field work. So, you know, honestly, yeah, it's different for each client, but I'd say a lot of auditors, I think, are working from a remote environment even before the pandemic happened.
So what does daily work look like since COVID? Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's changed for you?
Not prepared at all. This is my new office. This is my guest bedroom. I like the other background better. But yeah, so my daily commute went from 12 minutes to 14 seconds. I was a person who literally would have told you I cannot work from home and I will not ever work from home, but here I am working from home. Don't like it. I'm excited to get back. Our St. Helena office is only 3 people, so it's not as though there's 50 people in St. Helena that I'm working with on a daily basis. But I still, like I told you, I like going to my office. I like going to my little space and doing my work. I've got 2 dogs. They're extremely horrible working mates. They come up and want petsies all the time and sometimes bark for no reason at everything. So they're a pain, but they're you know, it's kind of fun to be home with the dogs. And, you know, hey, instead of taking a break and going and grabbing coffee, take a break and take the dogs on a little walk. You know, so there's a lot of benefits to it, and it is temporary. The remote work, like some of the stuff Amanda was talking about, sharing screens, looking at things, not sitting in somebody's cube or office, that's the way I've always worked, because I do work out of St. Helena. So most of the staff, seniors, and partners I work with are not next to me or not in the same office as me. So going to see them is a 2-hour commute. I did that 2 to 4 times a month, I'd say. I go to our San Francisco office and sort of connect with everybody there, because there is a lot more people and a lot more life, and quite frankly, better food when you go out to lunch. So I did used to go to the office a lot more. I do miss that, and I'm looking forward to getting back to that. Other than that, I mean, most of the time we don't go to clients for tax work. I shouldn't say, I mean, I do go to clients quite a bit. I love going to lunch with my clients. I love going to, since I am in the wine industry, I love wine. So I love going to clients' wineries. And honestly, I'd say it's all pleasure, but there have been many times when I've been out at a client's winery and gone, so glad I saw that, because that has a different tax treatment. I don't know, you would have told me you were doing this right now. Or you go and you learn about their process and you're like, yep, we really need to do an R&D credit study, because you're going to get a lot of benefits out of an R&D study because of the way you're making the wine. Amanda's laughing, but it's true, Amanda. Plus I like the wine and I do drink the wine, and I do like wine a lot. I don't know if I told you I like wine, but you know, I love going to my clients because I love going to my clients. And actually, another story, sorry, don't cringe, Erin. She's like, why do I invite him to things? So I've had a good family friend that I've known through friends and all this for 5, 8, 10 years. And their winery needed a new tax account, and they went to this guy. They never came and talked to me. And they went to this guy, and this guy ended up basically saying on about March 26th, hey, I can't help you. And they came to me in an utter panic and said, look, A, we don't know why we never came and talked to you in the first place. And B, we really need help. Can you please help us? Can you take us on? We know it's March 26th. We know you don't even want to pick up the phone. And actually, the CFO called me on my business line, and I didn't pick up because I was in the middle of a call. And then directly after that, my friend called me on my cell phone, and I went, oh no, I know what this is. This is not good. Long story short, helped him out, got him through extension. And then afterward, I had never been to the winery, and I'd always wanted to go. And my wife works right next door, and I've driven by there 60 times, never gone into the winery. And so I took the whole team out there, and I said, hey, can we come and check out the winery? And these people really helped. They were pivotal to getting you through April 15th, and I'd like to show them some appreciation. And afterward, the owner, she called me and she said, hey, none of our CPAs have ever come out to the winery before. We've never had a CPA actually come out. Thank you for coming out. It showed us so much. I'm just like, thank you. I got to get out of the office. I got to bill my time that day, not charge the client, but I got to actually put something in. I didn't take PTO. I got to go wine tasting. I mean, this is a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. And they're happier with me. I mean, that was just cool. So I'm looking forward to doing more of that. I'm looking forward to getting back out and going to things. There's a big conference I go to every January for the wine industry. It's virtual this year. The conference itself, earmuffs, Amanda and Aaron, is a boondoggle, complete boondoggle. It's 100% a networking event. And so the fact that we're not going to get to do that networking is a bummer for that conference. So I'm looking forward to that again. There's a great 1031 conference called the Jeremiah Long 1031 Conference. It alternates between a couple of awesome spots. You learn a ton in 3 days. I miss that. So I'm looking forward to getting back to all of that. But in the meantime, I am super pumped that we were able to pivot so quickly. We have an unbelievable IT department that started shipping out assets immediately. We were up and running within a couple weeks. We were nowhere near as prepared for this as Audit was. And we actually went the other direction. We had way too many meetings starting this out. And our tax leadership figured out pretty quickly that having 5 meetings that were 1 hour a week was just too much. And we backed off those meetings. But to Amanda's point, some of those weekly meetings that we have, that we've always had, are amazing. And the new community meetings that Brian does, our managing partner, have been really intriguing, to put it mildly.
Ditto to all of that. I mean, I love listening to your stories. It's fascinating. I don't know if everyone else on the call feels the same way, but I'm super into it. I know we only have a few more minutes left, but
yeah, and I'll just say questions again. If you guys have questions that you don't think you're going to hear an answer to, we'll be extremely direct.
honestly, this all, again, is kind of for you and keeping it conversational and hopefully kind of insightful. I know the recruiting process is a lot right now. It's a lot even when you're in person. So I know it's been a lot virtually. I'm not going to lie about that and say, oh yeah, it's great, everything's awesome. And I know it's been kind of really hard to get that true feel for firms and have an idea of where you want to head moving forward. And even if it's not with us, we really still welcome your questions and want to make sure that you all have the insight you need to kind of move forward with confidence. So we do have a few kind of final questions, but again, welcome you all to think of some too as we wrap up here shortly. And kind of the big one that comes with public accounting is busy season. And Robert, I know you just kind of wrapped that up last week. So what does it actually look like? Is it as bad as it's rumored to be on campus?
Worse. No, kidding. No, it's not worse. Busy season sucks. There's no way around it. Public accounting does have high hours. I would honestly challenge you to find a career that doesn't have some peaks and valleys, that doesn't have some times where you work overtime. If you can, awesome. Don't call me, I'm pretty happy, but call somebody else because you've stumbled onto something. But if you're entering into a career, not a job, I do differentiate the two. I was a waiter at tables in college. That's a job. It was a great job. I had a freaking blast. But when I left those doors, I was not a waiter anymore. You didn't corner me on the street and say, hey, carry these 10 drinks. Tax account's totally different. I'm not kidding you. Friends bother me at parties with tax questions. It's not a joke. It happens a lot. It's a lot of fun. I mean, you learn way more about your friends than maybe you wanted to sometimes, but you never stop your career. You don't take your hat off at the end of the day. So work-life balance is a term that I don't love because work maybe isn't life. I do work to live. I don't live to work, right? I'm doing this so that I can go out and enjoy some of the other passions I have in life. I happen to love what I do, but yeah, no, if you handed me $2 billion, I'm not going to be a tax accountant anymore. Let's be honest. So you talk to those guys who are like, oh, I'm a surf instructor. I do this every day of my life. It's like, no, you probably wouldn't. If I handed you $2 billion, you'd probably just go surfing, but you wouldn't be a surf instructor. So, busy season, it's a lot of hours. It comes in. What I love about it is you can set your calendar. You can literally put a post-it on the day you start and a post-it on the day you end. IRS screwed us on that one this year with COVID. Thanks, COVID. So yeah, busy season went from February to October 15th. Really, it did. There really was a sort of consistent push all year to get stuff done because the tax deadline got moved to July 15th. The second the IRS announces that, by the way, our clients put their heads in the sand and say, hey, I don't have to do taxes right now. We'll do it later. So it was a push this year. 2020 is going to go down as one of the tougher busy seasons, I think, as a whole. So what's busy season like? Typically, I'm not going to talk about it in the COVID days because we are going to get out of these. So typically, it's a lot more hours in the office. It's a lot more camaraderie. It's a ton of learning. Gosh, the situations you get into and the opportunities you have to learn and to touch so many different things is amazing. We typically do busy season meals, so everybody gets dinner together, and the stuff you hear at the kitchen table in the office is amazing. Fantasy football trash talking, client situations, partners sitting over there in the corner bitching about me and why I keep bothering them with questions. Laugh all you want, Aaron. It's Kevin and Josh, and I do need to talk to HR. But
I'm laughing because I can picture it, unfortunately.
It's horrible. As soon as I walk in, I hear them sigh. But it's an opportunity to learn a ton. The hours are there, absolutely. Does life stop? For some people, it does. Some people let busy season sort of beat them down and life stops for them. For me, I work a really solid amount of time Monday through Friday. I try and do dinner at home as much as I can with my wife and wonderful dogs, but don't always make it home. And what does dinner look like? It's probably like 8 o'clock instead of 7 o'clock. It's probably a much later dinner if I'm coming home to do dinner. Saturday, I work a half day to a full day being like 8 hours. And then Saturday night and Sunday, I typically turn the gas up and go enjoy life a little more. So yeah, the hours are there. It's more. And then, yeah, the closer you get to April 15th, the less I'm enjoying Saturday night and Sunday. It's like, okay, go to bed because we have a lot to do on Monday still. So I hope that answered the question. It's not bad. I mean, it's fine. It sucks, but it's fine. You get through it. You enjoy it. You learn a ton. You come out the other side with a feeling of a lot of accomplishment, and just the rapid learning, the growth and learning is amazing.
Does it suck less year after year, or
no?
It just sucks the same as the first?
No. Year after year, you get more used to it, and you know so much more. So those first couple years, boy, it's a hit. I was uniquely skilled at it the first season because my wife, then girlfriend, picked up and went to New Zealand for 3 months for an internship. So I had nothing to go home to. So there was, I worked a lot more and didn't mind it. After that, it got a little harder. So you know what to expect. You can manage it a lot better. I've gotten a lot better at managing September, October. It's not as bad for me as a lot of people because I am relentless at tracking down client information and getting it in the door. So my clients are a lot better prepared for September, October than some of my colleagues. Means I work a little bit more over summer, by the way. So it's a trade-off. Great question. Thank you.
I have another question. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Don't be sorry.
Oh man, I'm completely blanking. Okay. So when you come out of college and you get you go into a tax associate position, are you? Because I feel like I'm not prepared to get a full-time tax associate job yet. So are you just scrambling to pick up bits of information here and there? Does it feel like a finals project due tomorrow? Like, does that what it feel like?
One of the biggest misconceptions coming out of college is like you have to know all this stuff and on all the tests. I mean, how many tests have a formula or hey, what's the phase out for itemized deductions start at? Who cares? The tax software knows. I don't care any of that. By the way, our clients, they're phased out of everything. Don't worry about it. Their net worth is so high, their income is so high. Standard deduction, no, don't know it, don't care. I'm serious, by the way. The tax software knows it and I trust it, so I don't need to check that number. I'm more important on the inputs, the outputs the system will get right. So I didn't know anything about tax coming in. I worked VITA. I had done some tax returns, some W-2s. I'd seen 1099 or two. Really thought I knew what I was doing. Came in. This client has 120 K1s. okay, this client's tax return is 2,000 pages federal only. Yeah, no, I was not prepared for that. I didn't know how to do that. And if you put a gun to my head and asked me to do the return, I probably would have gotten 20% of it right. I had a fantastic team. I learned on the job, and coming out of it, at the end of that busy season, I'd say I could do 60% of that return. The next year, same return, 75. Next year, senior said, I don't want to do this anymore, put me on as senior, and suddenly I was the one reviewing that, so I better get more than 65, right? So I was not prepared at all, but figured it out. Dogs. Anyway, does that answer the question?
Can I ask that same question to Amanda for the audit department? Did you know anything going into the audit department? What were some the challenges? Because I'm going into the audit department at another firm next year, and right now I feel like I'm scrambling, trying to learn everything. And so what are some of your tips for that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, honestly. So our expectation is that you honestly don't have any knowledge prior to starting about audit, because a lot of what you learn is so theory-based. Like, you learn a lot about the risks and how that applies on an audit methodology standpoint, but you don't really understand the procedures. And each audit firm, honestly, is a little bit different in how they approach their audit testing. And so you'll have to learn your firm's processes and their specific risk profile, because even our firm has a different risk profile and how we approach our testing procedures than definitely our competitors or even any other firm. So I'd say for the most part, it's just honestly your willingness and your attitude to learn. It's not going to come as quickly as you probably want it to come, unfortunately. So you just have to stick with it and try to ask as many questions as you can, because that's the best way to learn. I'd say, other than asking questions, the other thing that obviously is the quickest way to learn is to get feedback. So I always tell first and second years that I work with to constantly ask people for feedback on their work and even their performance in general, because getting those little 1 or 2 cent comments can push you further than the next person, honestly.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you feel like you're going into a department or something and you're not prepared, I'd say that's fair. It's okay. On-the-job learning is important. I think college teaches you how to think, how to ask questions, how to problem solve. It does not teach you how to do a tax return. It does not teach you how to audit cash.
And that's kind of the expectation. I think and the two of them talked about it. The expectation is that you're willing to learn. If you show up with that attitude, the content and the training will be there. At our entry level, our first years go through about 3.5, 4 weeks of training to start. So we're going to meet you halfway. We're going to provide you the training opportunities, provide you that hands-on kind of opportunity. And if you show up willing to learn, then perfect. Hand in hand, you'll make it through together.
Absolutely.
I think, Amanda, if you want to maybe touch on busy season a little bit and what that looks like in audit, and then we can open it up to the group for more questions.
Yeah, no, definitely. So audit is a little different. We have a couple of deadlines that are sprinkled either because of a bank deadline or for the venture fund space. All of the limited partnerships are supposed to be filed by the end of March, for example. So it's a little bit different in terms of our deadlines. And so we're a bit more of like a marathon that a lot of people like to compare it to. So personally for me, I agree wholeheartedly with everything that Robert says. There's a lot of hours that you put in, but at the same time, there's so many different ways that you manage it. And so for me personally, I like that consistency that I have regardless of what season it is. So even during my busiest days and weeks, I try to leave the office by 5 o'clock, and I always have dinner at home. And if that means that I have to be more focused at work or like Robert said, put a couple hours in on Saturday, then I'm going to do that just so my sanity is straight and I can be functioning, honestly, because I can't pull these really crazy hours anymore. Like in college, I used to pull all-nighters, obviously, but once you start working, it's not at all possible, because you really need to have your mind right every single day that you show up to work. So for me personally, since I've focused more in this venture capital space, my busy season actually just started right when Robert's ended. It started October 15th, and it's going to go until March. And we're going to have a little dip through the summertime and then pick it up again. So for me personally, exactly what Robert said, though, I'd say the first couple of years, it's a little bit hard because you're trying to manage that change in your work schedule. But honestly, as the years have gone by, it's been so much easier. So for me personally, I've been able to take holidays like in May, guaranteed. Every May since I've started here, I've taken a 3-week holiday. And then also before I start my busy season, I take another 2 to 3 week holiday. And so having that consistency year over year, though, gives me something to look forward to. And it makes working so hard so much more enjoyable, because then now those times I'm off, I really am off and I have money, I can do whatever I want. Like I've traveled a bunch of places I never thought I'd be able to travel to. So yeah, no, I think really our motto is work hard, play hard, but I really don't think that the work hard is that unmanageable. Like I think you can definitely make it work. And for me personally, like I said, like I don't stay in the office past 5:30. I don't pull all-nighters, and I definitely made it to where I am now 8 years in.
Finding what works for you. I feel like that's the biggest key to busy season, and that open communication. I know some people, they're going to leave the office at 6 to go for a run and then log back on, or whatever it might be. You're going to have those life priorities, and that's so important to kind of refueling your tank every day, and you're open and honest about your schedule and kind of what's going on. I think the support's always going to be there to make it all happen.
Yeah, we have a director who, instead of staying later as the season gets going, he comes in earlier because he wants to leave at 5, and he leaves at 5, and he's done it for his entire career. He's a legend around the firm. He's awesome. But he earlier means sometimes he's in at 2 a.m. Cranking. And actually, one of our tax seniors who's famous for staying late actually left at 2 a.m. as Phil was coming in the door at 2 a.m. They actually crossed in the hallway and said, "Hey, enjoy your day. Hey, enjoy your night. Have a good one." So, but he comes, that guy comes in, sets his bag down and goes out to lunch. I mean, he starts his day at lunch. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not okay for everybody. He's worked really hard to build that schedule, but that was his path. That's what he said he wanted to do. And the firm has said, well, we're going to give you the flexibility to do that as long as you show up, you do your job, you continue keeping your clients happy. Their clients are super happy. Phil can tell you like his clients' kids' names. Just name a client, he'll tell you the kids. It's unbelievable.
Pretty cool. Well, I know that kind of wraps us up of time. I want to be mindful, and we've harped on questions, and I know we've gotten some really good ones from the group so far, but anything else that we can answer for you all, feel free to unmute and fire away.
I have a question regarding the tax dates now. So for next year, since for this year the tax return date it moved from April to
July 15th.
So for next year, will the busy season be January to April, or will it?
Yeah, it starts in February typically. 1099s don't even come out till the end of February now, so it's going to shift back. All indications say it's going to shift back. I mean, they could do something crazy, but I don't see the government moving the date again from April to July. It was kind of a one-year thing because of the unexpected hit of COVID. So,
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is more of a general question, but I was wondering, like, what's the biggest difference between, working at an accounting firm in the Bay Area compared to, a firm in SoCal? Because I've lived in SoCal my whole life, and I want to know what it's like at the Bay Area.
Yeah, I grew up in SoCal, man. I thought I was going to be in Southern California for the rest of my life. I grew up in Burbank. Everything's a quarter-acre plot. If you had bigger than a quarter-acre house, it was like, whoa, are you a farmer? Like, that's weird. So I moved to the Bay Area. It's, for my take on it, less traffic, generally happier people. And I'm only talking about like the heart of LA. So don't let me insult LA. I know a lot of people really like LA. I hate LA. So I will trash LA. Never mind, backpedaling. I'm going to trash LA. Way too much smog. People didn't seem as happy to me growing up. San Francisco's a lot friendlier, less traffic, easier to navigate. Both areas have a lot of fun things to do, so you're not gonna limit yourself on fun. Southern California has better beaches, better water to swim in. Northern California, Bay Area, way better sports teams. Let's not talk about baseball right now, but way better sports teams. Oh, let's not talk about basketball either. Damn it. Yeah, no, this isn't working out well for me, Aaron.
maybe the wrong year for that, but
Yeah,
you
right.
throw in the hiking, I would argue is better. And I mean, if we're tying it back to public accounting, I think the client availability in this area is unparalleled.
Yeah, and Southern California, most of the I shouldn't say most, but a lot of the wealth's going to end up in like movie star area, sports star area, things like that. They make terrible clients, movie stars, doctors, and athletes. Really, generally, I am generalizing. I'm sure some of them are fantastic clients. Attorneys too, by the way, terrible clients because they just ask you. And if any of your parents are athletes, doctors, or attorneys, I'm not meaning to insult, but from a client perspective, we've seen a lot of athletes who don't, who trust an advisor outside of us more than they trust us, or they trust, and then the attorneys are just questioning everything you're doing at every step of the way. They're going, well, I think the tax law says this. It's like, but it doesn't. So anyway, does that help? Sorry if that was rambling.
Yeah, definitely.
My whole family's in LA. I go back pretty frequently, but not catching me looking back. Our wine's better. Boom.
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question as well. So regarding like clients, like how do you guys deal with like bad clients, I guess?
Oh,
like,
Amanda, I'm going to let you answer this first, just because it's too recent for me.
There's always a challenging client that you'll encounter, I'd say. I'd probably echo back to what Robert was saying. So I try to avoid having terrible clients with not so great experiences, honestly, because I think it really comes down to your planning and your communication. So even with challenging clients, if you prepare well, you have clear communication, hopefully you can avoid most mishaps. But if there is a mishap, I'd say for the most part, the clients I'd say they're honestly understanding when it comes down to it, because what I've seen is that they know that you are the expert in what you're doing and they trust your opinion and what you have to say. So if they really truly disagree with you, obviously they're going to do what they want to do. So you will have to navigate around that. But yeah, no, I try to avoid honestly all mishaps as much as possible with clear communications. Like setting expectation is the key thing, I think, with a bunch of client mishaps. And then if they do come about, honestly, the best you can do is just try to recover as best as you can.
Yeah, so last year, not this year, I had a client, we sent him, I kid you not, 25, 30 emails, called him a bunch, left him a ton of voicemails, never got a hold of him. He owed a bunch of money. He didn't want to pay it in April, so he just paid interest and penalties and made his payments in October. Payments came in. They were way higher than he thought they were going to be. Returns didn't get to him until October 12th. We told him, hey, you got to start making payments tomorrow. He calls me from an airplane as he's getting on. He's like sitting in first class, and he just starts basically yelling at me. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is everybody around this guy on the plane doing right now? And he just literally bit my head off because we didn't get him things timely enough, and all his friends' CPAs are way better than us. And why are we so bad at our jobs? And it was like this really interesting situation where we had done absolutely everything right. Partner's not on the call with me, by the way. The phone rang at my desk. The partner is not with me, and I'm just sitting here getting my head chewed off. I'm kind of like, wow, this sucks. And then I'm like, dude, John, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. We're talking to your CFO about this. Nobody's giving us the information we needed. We couldn't have gotten this to you any sooner. He said, well, how'd you try to get in touch with me? I said, email, voicemail, phone calls. We tried to get to you through your CFO. We tried to get to you through this person and this person. Well, I'm only responding to text these days. You know how busy I am? You're going to have to text me. And I said, John, I appreciate that, but I am not giving you my cell phone number, and I am not texting you. Business works on email. It's a really, really effective means of communicating. It also gives us a paper trail to make sure we're documenting our conversations. We're not going to be texting with you. And if that's a problem, I totally understand, and thanks very much. Payments are due tomorrow. Let us know if you have any questions. Took a walk around the office after that, took a few deep breaths because I literally got my head chewed off. Went into the partner's office after I'd had a little bit of an opportunity to calm down. He's like, cool, no problem. We're firing him. It's fine. We got it. We're done. Let's get paid. We're done. A month later, he starts calling me like, hey, we're going to start disengaging with Johnny Boy. And I'm like, honestly, I think we ought to keep him as a client. Like, I know he's kind of a jerk. I know he's a little bit hard to work with, but the stuff he's doing is really interesting. He always pays his bills on time, and this is the only time he's ever blown up, and he was just pissed about this and this and this. So we had the opportunity to fire him. The partner was totally on board, and we ended up keeping the client because at the end of the day, he's doing a lot of interesting stuff, and it's a fun engagement. So we could have fired him, but we didn't. Generally, I agree with Amanda. Like, try your best. If we put our best foot forward, we're going to knock it out of the park 90-95% of the time. The 5% that we fall down, we'll pick ourselves back up. We're a team. We do it together. I totally screwed up last year on a client stock planning, like hugely. I was off by a lot. It was really unfortunate. And I told the partner, like, hey, you know, I got to call the client and tell him I screwed up. And she goes, no, I'll call him and tell him I screwed up. I'm like, but you didn't. She goes, I'm the partner on the engagement. It happened under my watch. This is my problem. This is not your problem. And I will call and tell the client that I screwed up. Like, that doesn't make any sense. You didn't. She's like, look, that's the way it is. So I've never been pushed in front of a bus, which I appreciate. She stepped in front of a bus for me, which was awesome. So you're going to run into bad client situations. You're going to run into bad waiting tables. People's steak didn't get cooked right. I mean, they were horrible. Lots of mean people. You avoid it by killing people with really good client service, really good communication, and doing your job really well. You're going to knock it out of the park 90% of the time, maybe 95. The other 5, you'll figure out, and you'll be stronger and grow from it and learn.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And I know we're past our time. If anybody has to hop off, feel free to just leave.
By all means.
Yeah.
Yeah. But any other kind of final questions here? Final thoughts as we wrap up?
I have a question. So I was wondering, what interview tips would you give for like students who are like interested towards Frank Rimerman?
One of my favorite ones, and this isn't exactly fair, are any of you like actively thinking of going to work for the IRS? No, right? They always show up at career fairs, so they're a great first place to get your jitters out. Like, go talk to them first, because you're not really looking for something out of that. Don't do it to other accounting firms, please, but the IRS, come on, they're okay. And then interview, like, I do on-campus interviews, I do Zoom interviews. I guess they're all Zoom now, huh, Aaron? Well, be yourself. Don't try and put on a front. Don't try and be something you're not just to get a job. It's going to work out really poorly, and it's going to come across as not genuine. When you go for an in-person interview, everything is part of the interview. If you go to lunch with people, you're at the interview. I had a guy checking his phone at lunch one day, and I'm just like, okay, that's fine. We have so many candidates. I don't need you if you're busier on your phone. So let's say grandma's in the hospital and you're really nervous about that. Come out at the beginning of the interview and say, hey, look, I'm so sorry. I know I shouldn't even have my phone with me today, but unfortunately my grandma's, you know, in the hospital, and I'm keeping my phone just in case something bad happens. I need to run out of here. Fine, we're people. We'll figure it out. We'll help you through that. But don't sit there and check your phone the entire time, not explaining what the situation is, unless you're not interested, and then don't go to the interview. Show up, be genuine, be prepared, know what's on your resume, do a little bit of homework about the firm you're interviewing with. I applied to a firm that I thought was small. Turns out there were like 5,000 people in 20 offices. I'm like, oh, I don't want to work here. It was one of the worst interviews I've ever been in my life, and left knowing I wasn't getting the job because I didn't want it. So do your research first so you don't look silly like me. Aaron, you're really the expert here. Why am I talking?
I was going to echo kind of the BU. I mean, if we're in an interview, you don't want me to give you all rehearsed kind of answers and things like that. We want it to be a conversation. And so that's really what I would recommend is we want to know you and who you're going to be. We want to know who's going to show up day one. So don't give us the person that you think we want to hear or anything like that. No, we want to know who we're going to hire. And so tell us about your personal interests and things like that. We've already talked about so much that we don't have that major expectation around the technical concepts, but show me that you can ask questions, you can have that conversation, and that you're really excited about your future there. I think that'll take you a lot further than any kind of stiff classic interview that you might come across.
Yeah, and I'd say like technical questions, we do not ask them. Most accounting firms do not ask them. If somebody's asking you technical questions day one at the interview, man, that person had a bad day the night before and is just looking to take it out on something. That's not fair. So just, yeah, be genuine, be yourself. Ask questions too. If you have questions about like something, don't walk out of that room without asking the question, because a question you don't want to ask, there's a reason you don't want to ask it, so you may as well ask it and get it out there now. Don't think it's going to get better unasked. Same thing, Andrew, to your question, client situation, bad client, the best way to face it is head on. Don't bury it. Don't leave and expect it to get better by the next day. Go tell the partner today. Go tell the manager today. Sitting on anything is never a good policy in all things in life, really. Life advice from a CPA. I could go on all night, so if you guys do have other questions, feel free. Aaron's like, no, I'd actually like to go home tonight, Robert. I'm done for the day. Amanda's like, Robert, stop, seriously. Oops. But seriously, any other questions? Don't get off the call if you have one you're just dying to ask.
Actually, another question. What are your guys' like favorite perks at working at Frank Rimerman? Like, get like benefits or like times that you guys. Yeah.
Andrew, I think it's the people.
Okay.
We have great healthcare. We have great PTO policy. We have just an amazing amount of flexibility. I mean, that's what's great about public accounting is the amount of flexibility. You don't necessarily have to be at your desk from 9 to 5. Aaron, Amanda, anything else stand out to you as like that's freaking
The holiday
awesome?
party is a must-have.
Oh yeah,
It's
the
a
holiday.
must-have. It's going to be a pretty sad year without it, but if you weren't sold on the firm before, the holiday party will do it for you.
Yeah, that is insane. The stories out of the holiday party.
We'll also do
we
it for
won't
you.
tell you here, but there are some stories that you're just like, you got kicked out of an entire city for 2 years? What? Yeah, that's real.
Thank you.
I had another question about the internship. So are we going to be spending like an even amount of time on like tax, audit, and consulting, or is it like, how is that gonna work?
Yeah. So obviously remote internship might look a little bit different, but as far as where we've planned our prior in-person internships, we do try to get you that exposure across the board. So our internship's about 7.5 weeks. We do reserve some time at the beginning for general kind of orientation, onboarding. Again, you guessed it, training. Got to set you up for success for the summer. And then it ends up being about 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks across the departments. And throughout our intern class, every single intern is going to have their own individual rotation schedule, which is really nice. It allows you to kind of be in that small group and kind of have maybe a few other interns at the rotation, but still have that availability to have those one-on-one relationships with your senior manager all the way up to a partner. So really nice throughout the summer. You might have tax, audit. I might go audit first and then spend 2 weeks in tax, whatever it might be. But it ends up being about 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks across each of the 3 service lines.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was on a rotation. ACFO was out at a client, was really excited to go out to the client. And the owner of the proprietor of the business was known to have a little bit of a hot temper. And he's got these engineers in his office and they hadn't met a deadline or something. And he is just screaming at them. And my desk where I was sitting, I could see into his office. It was way down a hallway, but I could see directly in his office. I could hear everything, just screaming at them. How can you not do your jobs? You guys are engineers, do your jobs. Look at him, look at that guy. He's there, he knows what he's doing his job. And I am just sitting there thinking to myself so hard, please do not let him be pointing to me because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing right now. And sure enough, he was pointing right at me and I'm just sitting there like, yep, I don't know what I'm doing. He'd be yelling a lot louder at me. So rotations are fun.
Good time. Well, I know this meeting was kind of scheduled time a little bit. I'm gonna cut us off. I'm gonna do it. But I did drop my email in the chat, so I'm happy to take any follow-up questions as you kind of reflect on our conversations, or if you have anything else you want me to pass along to Robert and Amanda, I'm happy to do that. But thank you all for spending your Monday evening with us. I know on behalf of the three of us, we really enjoyed kind of sharing our stories with you, and hopefully you're excited about your future and opportunities ahead, and hopefully our paths will cross again soon.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Pleasure talking with you.
Thank you guys for
Thank
coming out
you.
and spending time with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the week. Take care.
Bye. All right. So
That was really good, dude. Like, I did not expect that.
Some good vibes.
Yeah.
Really good vibes.
yeah, I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. That was cool. I think they do have their internships, like applications open on Handshake. So yeah, if you guys do want to apply for that, that's definitely pretty cool. I'll ask Aaron for Robert and Amanda's emails too, if you guys want to like message them or anything. So I'll send that out in an email tonight or tomorrow as soon as I can, so that you guys can contact them. But yeah, so that wraps up our Beta Alpha Psi meeting. So thank you guys for coming. It's hot, I know, with all the professional gear on, but I'm gonna stick around if you guys want to like just chill or ask any questions about BAP. But yeah, so thank you guys for coming out.
Dude, I wanted to ask him a bunch of questions about venture capitals, because my mom recently spoke to her accountant, and then she told him that, oh, you know, my son's going into accounting too. He's gonna get his CPA or whatever.